What was the most statistically unlikely event you've ever witnessed? Went to school with identical quadruplets. All their names even started with Q. Goofiest names on the planet. No question. I'm an astronomer and was sitting in the backyard one summer evening chatting with a colleague. We were sharing our origin stories about what got us interested in astronomy. He described how, as a child, he was sitting in his backyard one evening and was fascinated by a bright meteor that streaked across the sky. As soon as he finished the sentence, a bright meteor streaked across the sky, hit a squirrel while golfing from quite a distance. It was on the run. He rolled and popped back and kept running. Back in the days of landlines, I called my friend. The phone never rang, but I heard, "Hello?" It was him. He was calling me at the exact same time and it connected us without either phone ringing. We did the exact same thing a month or so later. Damn, guess it wasn't that weird at all. I'd never heard of it happening to anyone else until today, when apparently the rest of the entire world informed me that they've done the same thing. Lol. Actually just mentioned it the other day in another post. I saw a car in the next lane over get rear-ended while I was talking about a car getting rear-ended. It was pretty weird. I was a tour guide in a very remote, unvisited part of Alaska one summer and a guy from Costa Rica took my tour. Probably the only person from Latin American I saw all summer. The next spring I went to Costa Rica and took a tour of a butterfly colony. We were the only ones there. Seemed like they got very few visitors. The tour guide was the guy from who had taken my tour in Alaska. My neighbor was installing a wireless keypad for her garage door opener. I was coming home and at the exact moment she pushed the buttons to program it to her opener, I pushed my opener. So my opener then operated her garage door. Didn't know until the next day when I came home again and went to open my door and hers opened also. My brother and I were horsing around when we were kids and started throwing things at each other from across the room. At one point I grabbed a pencil off my desk and threw it in his general direction. It missed him, but bounced off a table, a wall and ended up on the floor standing straight up balanced on the eraser side of the pencil. Couldn't do that again if I tried a million times. A clown car accident. It was about 10 years ago in Northeast Ohio at the corner of 87 and 44. A little old lady in a Camry had sent a tiny car off the road and there was like 6-7 clowns milling about with one very confused looking steady dot. I played a World of Darkness vampire RPG game once and I got to roll 12 10-sided dice. I rolled 11 ones and a 2. Friends and I were hiking in Hawaii Volcano National Park when it erupted in 2021. The entire island swarmed to the park to see the lava flow. We had already gotten our cabin campsite set up, and it was a 10-minute walk from the viewing site. That night the sky had this amazing orange glow. I knew at that moment that what I was seeing was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I still didn't take a picture. I knew a photo with my phone wasn't going to do it justice, but damn still should have done it. This one happened to me a few years ago. I grew up in central Indiana. I was visiting Los Angeles and sitting at a bar. I started chatting with the stranger sitting next to me. Before too long we realized that we both grew up in the same town in Indiana. Eventually, we came to realize that we both lived in the same bedroom of the same house in Indiana growing up. His family owned the home prior to mine, in fact his dad was the builder. Our heads about exploded when we came to the realization while sitting at a bar on the other side of the country. From another thread that asked the same question, I had a cousin who had lived in Los Angeles years ago, and had a 323 phone number that I had saved in my phone. She moved and changed to her new area code and gave up the old phone number. Years later, I got a call from the same 323 number, and it popped up with my cousin's name on my phone. I never removed the 323 number from the contact. The person who was calling me had no idea who I was or who my cousin was and didn't have the number in their contacts. She had accidentally misdialed someone completely unrelated and entered my number. Edit, to add, I wasn't even in the same area. So she had to have manually typed a 10-digit phone number wrong and entered mine. Every time I flew to a specific city airport, I always saw my first grade teacher there arriving on a different plane. No freaking clue how it happens. Something I witnessed and was involved in back in 1996 when I was 12 years old. I got into 2 car accidents in one day. My dad was driving me in his car and we rear-ended somebody broke down without hazards on going about 40 mph. We weren't hurt but the car was totaled. Then the tow truck that came to transport our car from the scene, we were in the cab of the truck and drove away from the scene. Another car at the scene held up by police traffic ignored the police blockade and drove his station wagon right into the back of the flatbed tow truck we were in, decapitating him instantly. He was an elderly man that was coming home from a train show, and I just remember the police throwing all kinds of train collectibles out the back of his car because they didn't want the boxes to burn since the car caught fire. I remember being carried past the car and they just had a sheet over a torso. It was completely devastating. My mother went to the man's funeral because my dad and I weren't able to handle it. Answered restaurant reservations call with a guy who had the same name as I do at the same time. Very common first name and very distinct last name. Both of us had a table for two at 7 o'clock. It was rather uncanny when the hostess asked my last name and I still confirmed with the other guy looking puzzled why I thought she was calling for me. Bumped into a high school classmate outside of Buckingham Palace in London. He was on a run, just passing through for a couple seconds. My friend and I were taking pictures, only hung around there for 10 minutes. We're from Southern California. I bumped into my uncle in Philadelphia at the Liberty Bell. My brother was being married Virginia Beach and my uncle RSCPD that he couldn't attend. My wife and kids took a day trip up to Philadelphia like a day or two before the wedding and we bumped into him and his family. He lived in Las Vegas at the time. We were throwing cards into a box on top of a trash can on Halloween night, just drunk and having fun. And one of my cards bounced off the wall and stuck into the floor on the corner standing up. That card, the ace of spades. Everyone was dumbfounded and we left it there for like 15 minutes.